Hello, everybody. Let's do it. Yeah, good to see you. Hope you're all hanging in there. Hanging in there out there. Hope you're hanging in there out there. That might become my new motto. Welcome. We're gonna get into some more talk of genocide. We're gonna get into Trump is a socialist now. In fact, Republicans are upset with Trump's socialism. Is it really socialism? What are we talking about? That we got an update on on the sandwich thrower, a hero to us all, the man who threw the sandwich at the National Guard in Washington, D.C. More on Venezuela. I got so much for you. I can't even list it all. Coming up right now. Please click thumbs up, click share, click subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will do it right about now. Now we're doing it. Now it's happening. So the world is outraged about yet another Israeli action. I always find it odd if after, like, we've gone through almost 2 years of genocide, and people will find a specific thing, like a specific girl. It was just really horrific that Israel killed, or a specific bombing. It's like, here's the thing. I'm happy to see all these articles because I want people talking about the genocide. I want them talking about it as much as possible. But I always find it amazing that they're like, no, that crossed a line. Dad, the thing they did today, that was, they can't do that. But whatever, I guess beggars can't be choosers. I'll take any article where the mainstream media is talking about Israel being a fucking genocidal, theocratic apartheid state. Anyway, this has been covered, some aspect of it on most mainstream media, as this horrific hospital attacked. The way the way NBC News is talking about it is, what is a double tap, and why has Israel's use of it outraged so many? They somehow manage, because look, all these outlets know that most people just read the headlines and maybe the subtitles. That's probably 80% of their views. So they somehow managed to tell you almost nothing in the headline so that we can't really inform the public. A lot of them you can't even get past the paywall. So you'll just see the headline and have no idea what they're ever talking about. So they're not really informing the public. This one, if you only read the headline, you wouldn't know what the fuck's going on. They make it sound like an MMA move. What Israel did a naked chokehold, which is illegal under certain, like, wait, what? But then they clarify a little bit in the subheading. Israel bombed a Gaza hospital, waited 7 minutes, then bombed it again, killing people who had rushed to help. It's not the first time this has happened. I also like that second part. It's not the first time this has happened. Talk about passive voice. Something has happened. This has happened. Thing has happened. In Israel and Gaza, thing has happened. You mean this isn't the first time that Israel has behaved like a genocidal monster and fucking murdered the people that came to help the people who had just been murdered by Israel? That's what you meant to say. NBC News says it has become an all too familiar scene. First responders, medics, journalists rushing to the site of an Israeli attack. But this time, as they rallied to a shattered stairwell at Nasser Hospital, bearing stretchers and cameras, Israel struck again, compounding the scene of carnage and enveloping those trying to aid and document, succeeding in killing multiple journalists, multiple medics. Global outcry mounted Tuesday over this double tap strike on Gaza's largest remaining medical center, which was caught on video by channel Al Ghad TV and others who were recording rescue efforts from the first missile when the second struck. At least 20 people were killed, including 5 journalists who had worked for various outlets, including the Associated Press, Reuters, and Al Jazeera. So Israel managed to kill people working for the Associated Press, the AP, Reuters, and Al Jazeera in this single strike. The Israeli military, and isn't it amazing that somehow a lot of journalists still are not actually standing up for Gaza and standing up against Israel, standing up against this fucking horrific murder of journalists? It's like, you won't even stand up for your own. Your level of lack of courage is impressive. If you can have a level of lack of something. The Israeli military announced it had concluded an initial investigation. I always love how Israel investigates themselves. Don't they always do a beautiful job investigating themselves? Anytime Israel does something horrific, I always think I bet I'm going to wait, find out what Israel says about this, because I hope they investigate and find out. The Israeli military announced it had concluded an initial investigation, which Prime Minister Netanyahu earlier called a tragic mishap. Was it? Yeah. Was the entire fucking genocide a tragic mishap? Is that what this is? Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, said on Tuesday that the conflict in Gaza could be resolved by the end of the year. Oh, okay, just a few more months of genocide. Don't worry, folks. Genocide, only a few more months, and then we're going to resolve it. And then he also added that it would get resolved one way or another, which pretty much sounds like, well, maybe they'll complete the genocide. Maybe they'll successfully murder all 2.2 million people. That's one way to complete it. Oh, one way or another. Wonderful. I'm sure we're all excited for that. He added, we have a large meeting in the White House tomorrow, chaired by the president, and it's a very comprehensive plan we're putting together. Oh, thank God. They're putting together a comprehensive plan. These fascist neo-Nazis are getting together to decide how to help make sure this genocide ends. Thank you. Thank you, guys, for doing that. Meanwhile, Israel is worried that Trump might actually come up with a plan to end it, because I think all of you know by now, Israel does not want this to end. Netanyahu does not want this to end. And in fact, if it were to end, and the other wars that Israel has created for itself were to end, Netanyahu would be out of office and possibly be in jail in Israel. Not for anything he's done in Gaza. Israel loves what he's done in Gaza. Most Israelis support some level of ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Something like 82% of Israelis, Jewish Israelis, say that the ethnic cleansing should be completed. Gaza should be killed or moved. And it's like 72%, or was it 76%? Anyway, 70-some% say there are no innocents in Gaza, which is full genocide. Think that is full level pro-genocide. 70-some% in Israel. It's unfathomable that they have managed to re-educate an entire 10 million people into, or almost the entire, into being absolute sociopathic maniacs. It's unbelievable. But anyway, Israel is worried. Thank you, Teresa, for supporting the community. You've always been amazing and always really supported my work, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you, Teresa. Israeli government is looking with concern at Trump's Gaza meeting. Israeli political commentator says the Israeli government is likely concerned about an expected White House meeting later today focused on Gaza. As far as Israel goes, the day after is not a desirable commodity. They do not want this genocide to end, because they don't, when it ends, whatever, assuming they don't actually kill all 2.2 million, whatever comes the day after is less than what Israel is, quote unquote, achieving now. What they're achieving, quote unquote, if you can use such a horrific word for genocide, is they have complete control of Gaza. They can kill whoever they want with impunity. They are not allowing Gazans to live or to leave. It's just full control. It's full control and full level genocide. The moment that stops, no matter what deal they sign, they're going to be expected to do less of the things they want to do. Even if it's the worst deal for Gazans imaginable, they're still going to be doing, Israel's still going to be doing less of the horrific things they want to do. And so they do not want this to end. Anyway, yeah, they're looking on with concern. Lucky for them. I'll put you at ease, Israel. Trump seems to talk a lot about doing something about any of this and does fuck all about it. So I hope that helps you rest easy tonight, Israel. that every time Trump says he's going to end this thing or move us all along or turn Gaza into a casino resort or put out an AI video of him sitting on the beach in Gaza with his fat face, none of it ever happens. So I hope you can rest well tonight, Israelis, knowing that you can keep genociding tomorrow. I always like to cover when the kind of the mainstream, fairly mainstream human rights organizations take the next step in just declaring this a genocide, declaring this forced starvation, all those things. Amnesty International has put out another report saying new testimonies new testimonies provide. I be working on my reading skills. I be reading good today's lots of reading goods. New testimonies provide compelling evidence that Israel's starvation of Palestinians in Gaza is a deliberate policy. Now, I know if you're watching this right now, you and I are going, and if you're not watching this, then please stop listening for a moment. You and I hear this headline and go, fucking yeah, it's a deliberate policy. They literally have let in like 3% of the amount of aid that would actually allow the population to survive over the past 2 years. So, yeah, it's intentional. What's the other option? That Israel was like, wait, they're hungry? Wait, people are starving to death? Oh, my God. I had no idea. So this is one of those, of course, headlines, but I will say I'm glad it's coming from Amnesty International. It's not just coming from the fringes of the internets. Israel is carrying out a deliberate campaign of starvation in the Gaza Strip, systematically destroying the health, well-being, and social fabric of Palestinian life. Amnesty International said today as it published chilling new testimonies of starved, displaced civilians. Their accounts underscore the organization's repeated findings that the deadly combination of hunger and disease is not an unfortunate byproduct of Israel's military operations. It is the intended outcome of plans and policies that Israel has designed and implemented over the past 22 months to deliberately inflict on Palestinians in Gaza conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction, which is part and parcel of Israel's ongoing genocide against them. It basically Israel's calculation is we get pushback when we just murder everyone with bombs. Now, they have murdered a lot of people with bombs, but they get some pushback. So they think, well, if they just starve to death, then that's not technically that's not our bomb hitting them. So if we can just get a lot of them to starve to death, also when people are very hungry and on the cusp of starvation, they tend to die a lot from disease. So we can use disease as a weapon. So these are all weapons, but they view the starving and the disease and stuff as better for them because it looks slightly less to idiots around the world, to those who don't notice these things. It looks slightly less like Israel did it. So that is how you have, and the numbers vary widely, but the estimates are definitely over 300,000 Gazans, maybe over 400,000, have been murdered since October 7th, except that what's the number we're given by the mainstream media? 55,000, which is still horrific. But that's a big gap, 350,000 and 50,000. Huge gap. If my math serves me correct, that's a 300,000 gap. I don't know. I don't have pad and pen right here, but massive gap. Well, one of them gets repeated all day in the mainstream media, the 55,000 or whatever it is, 55, 57,000. That gets repeated fairly often in mainstream media. The 300,000 barely ever talked about. It's like me and Steven Donziger and Ralph Nader and Roger Waters talking about the 300,000, 400,000 number. So that is why they view starvation and disease as far more useful. They can kill 300,000 more people and have the media just run with the 55,000 number. Anyway, even Amnesty International, which is always slow to the party, even they have noticed that this is intentional. which thank you, Amnesty, for noticing that. Okay, let's move on. I did not want to I did not want to neglect covering Israel and covering the genocide, even though it is tough to find like new aspects of it every day. Most of it is not new. But how do you not cover a genocide every day unless you're the mainstream media? In that case, you're quite good at it. You're excellent at it. Or actually, it's not just the mainstream corporate media. It is many independent media people who don't really want to talk about it that often. You know, if you're the Tucker Carlsons and the Russell Brands of the world, you might mention it here or there, and you might go, "Oh, I don't think it's a great look for Israel," and then you move on with your life. But okay. So Trump, in his wonderful move towards more and more fascism, has he's done something that the right wing, that some Republicans are calling socialism, and it's made them very angry. Trump's brand of U.S. capitalism faces socialist backlash from conservatives. And this is because Trump announced on Friday that the federal government is acquiring a 10% stake in Intel, the Fortune 500 company that is one of the largest American manufacturers of semiconductors. And he hinted that the U.S. might not be done adding to its stock portfolio. I will make deals like that for our country all day long, he wrote. So he's talking about the U.S. government buying more and more of U.S. corporations. A right-winger radio host, Eric Erickson, said you can't just be against socialism when the left does it. So if you support socialism, apparently Donald Trump is your guy. Some economists warn, well, I'll get to that line in a second, but there's so many aspects of this that some of them, the certain mainstream outlets are covering, most of them they're not. But to cover this story is to pretend that U.S. corporations and the U.S. government are not in bed with each other already. You do not have to, the U.S. government does not have to directly own a stake of a company for there to be tremendous circle jerks, we'll say, between the corporate world and the U.S. government. I've said many times, we live in inverted totalitarianism, ruled by the anonymous corporate state, as Sheldon Wolin put it. And this is the corporate world, the corporatocracy essentially owning the U.S. government. And it's really in your face now that Trump is literally a company. There is a company called Trump Inc. or whatever. Like, he is a company. He is a billionaire. His cabinet is all billionaires. They all made their billions from massive companies, massive investment firms, massive what have yous. And that is the government. So the idea that you have to have the government literally buying the stock of the company in order for it to be a connection between the government and the company is laughable to me. That is already happening endlessly. And some have defined fascism as the merging of the corporate and the state, the merging of the corporate world and the state. So by that definition of fascism, with, of course, an authoritarian figurehead at the top of it all. So by that definition of fascism, we are largely there. And yes, there is some aspects of socialism that is the state running corporations, but the state owning a 10% stock in a corporation is not the same. And then I've seen other arguments that, oh no, this doesn't count as socialism because the government only has a 10% non-voting rights stock in Intel. So that's not enough for them to really have control. And I'm like, are you really naive enough to think that if Intel has 10% of their stock owned by the government, what the government tells them to do is not going to have any influence? The percentage doesn't really matter that much. Of course, the government is going to have massive pull on what Intel does. But as I just finished saying, you don't have to buy the stock to have that influence. So this is all kind of like a word game amongst idiots, I think. Anyway, this then says, the BBC article then says, some economists warn that his promise to help companies that make deals with the US government raises the potential for corruption and market inefficiencies. Yes, yes. Could you imagine? Just clear everything you know about where we stand, where we are. Could you imagine American capitalism having some level of corruption or market inefficiencies? Doesn't that sound horrific? I mean, we need to make sure we never get there where there's any corruption in our capitalist system or market inefficiencies. Because once that happens, all is lost. And that is my scene called sarcasm. Of course, what the fuck? We did it was the most corrupt shit in the world. That's what we are. Market inefficiencies. We have 17 million vacant homes in America. 17 million. And we have, a million homeless people, but we have far more than that who can't afford their homes. We have far more than that underwater in their homes. We have far more than that renting because they can't own a home. All of that's going on. Where is their efficiency? What efficiency? People can't afford the grocery store now. There is no efficiency under cutthroat, unfettered capitalism. It is all just whatever will enrich the rich. If you enrich the rich, if whatever procedure enriches the rich a little fucking more, that's what happens. There's no efficiency. Who told you there was efficiency? One guy having 250, no, I don't know. I guess he's up to, what is Elon Musk up to? Like $400 billion? It depends on the day, but 300, $400 billion. Well, 5 guys, it might be 4 now, but 5 fucking douche nozzles have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50% of America. How is that efficient? There's no efficiency. That is not the definition of our game. But this is what our idiot economists that the mainstream media will quote say. They pretend that we live in an efficient society. They pretend that things are working well until Trump bought 10% of Intel. Yeah, right. Also, some may remind you that during the bailout, under Obama's government, they bought up the car makers, right? The U.S. government bought a large stake in General Motors. People started calling it government motors. In order to rescue that, the government was dumped incredible amounts of money to rescue the banking system. Same thing in COVID. Trillions of dollars pumped into Wall Street during COVID. It is, if that's your definition of socialism, when the government spends money on things, it's socialist when it's rescuing the rich, and it's cutthroat capitalism when the poor are poor, right? Capitalism for all of us, socialism for when the rich struggle. That's how it works. So anyway, you got a lot of Republicans that are furious. Trump is socialist now. Now, of course, I will say this. It's not that I'm saying he's doing anything positive. Why is Trump buying a stake of Intel? Well, to have some control over Intel and to prop it up against other countries, which we are losing to. The U.S. empire is waning, is collapsing. And, this is one way for it to make the U.S. corporations that we need to, quote unquote, be competitive, is to dump massive amounts of U.S. money into those corporations. So Trump's saying he's going to do that more and more. But of course, he wants them to bend to his will now, or he'll take, if Trump has a 10% stake in a company and then says, don't do anything I dislike, or I'm taking that money, billions of dollars back, I think they're generally going to do what he likes. So it gives him more control. Now, most of these corporations are doing what Trump likes anyway. Weapons contractors are not going against Trump. Big oil, big ag, big pharma. They're largely doing what he wants, and to some degree, he's doing what they want. It's what they want. It's a circle jerk. It goes back and forth. It's a reach around. You could use your own metaphors. Come on. I don't need to come up with all the metaphors for you, okay? You do your metaphor thing. All right. In today's Is This the Onion or Not? This is becoming an ongoing series. You probably remember the viral video, that was like a week ago, of the guy in D.C., Washington, D.C., where I lived for 8 years, and where I was technically born, but I disassociate from it. He's screaming at the National Guard on the streets of Washington, D.C., and then hurling his Subway sandwich into the chest of one of them, and then running for it before they tackled him and arrested him for the Subway sandwich assault. Well, you may have heard the idiom, the expression, the government could indict a ham sandwich. The idea is that being indicted doesn't really mean anything because they can indict fucking anything. They failed to indict the ham sandwich thrower. The D.C. grand jury refused to indict the sandwich thrower. Sandwich throwing man opposed to the Trump City takeover. The D.C. grand jury said, no, we're not going to indict him. Now, we do not yet know if the government now is going to try to indict the ham sandwich. That is yet to be known. So that will actually put to a test they could indict a ham sandwich question, which I think we're all looking forward to have that age-old question answered. But yes, our hero, my hero and yours, the ham sandwich thrower, they did not indict him. A grand jury Tuesday reportedly refused to hand down a felony indictment against Sean Dunn, a former paralegal at the U.S. Department of Justice who hurled a sandwich at the Customs and Border Protection officer. Oh, I didn't realize it was Customs. I thought it was National Guard. Earlier this month, two sources have told the New York Times that federal prosecutors came up empty in their first attempt to get a grand jury to charge Dunn with felony assault. They couldn't get her done. Okay, we're in a fucking simulation. They couldn't get her done. Tell me this isn't a simulation. Jesus. It would only be more obvious if his name was Ham Sandwich. Come on. They couldn't get her done on Sean Dunn. I can't. Simulation sucks. Come up with more creative names. Simulation. To charge Dunn with a felony assault against a federal officer, a crime that carries a maximum sentence of 8 years in prison. Could you fucking imagine if they put this guy in prison for 8 years for throwing a sandwich at a steroidal idiot on the streets of D.C.? How pathetic that's got to be. At what point do you know it's fascism? When they're locking a guy up for throwing a sandwich, locking him up for 8 years. Jesus Christ. The New York Times described this development as a remarkable failure and a sharp rebuke by ordinary citizens against the team of prosecutors who are dealing with the fallout from President Trump's move to send National Guard troops and federal agents into the city on patrol. Video of Dunn hurling the sandwich at an officer went viral earlier this month. Before he threw the sandwich, Dunn was heard calling the officers fascists and telling them they were not welcome in this city. You know the other reason this guy's a hero to me? By the way, at the top of this article, for those of you listening to the podcast, everyone, this is also a podcast. It's called The Lee Cam Show on Spotify, or it's called Moment of Clarity on Apple Podcasts. If you are listening to it, rate the goddamn thing. Give it the high star rating. It helps. For those of you who listen to the podcast, at the top of this article is the famous Banksy photo of the guy throwing a bouquet of flowers, except someone has replaced it with a Subway sandwich, which I think is awesome. But another reason this guy's my hero is because he had clearly, the sandwich was not eaten. He had just bought this thing. He had just walked outside of the Subway, and he chose to hurl that sandwich. That is a sandwich that guy was looking forward to. He's probably hungry, stood in line, paid for it, then threw the full sandwich. You know, if there was just a fourth of a sandwich left, then I wouldn't. This is kind of nothing. This is a nothing burger, nothing sandwich. This is a nothing burger Subway sandwich. But full sandwich, you got to respect that guy. You got to respect that guy. I put him just below Luigi. Luigi, Subway sandwich thrower. Also, this is by far the best Subway sandwich ad. This is the best Subway sandwich, best publicity Subway sandwiches has had in like a decade. Subway sandwich has been eating it for publicity for a decade. It turned out that the guy that was the face of Subway sandwich for like 15 years is a raging pedophile. So that didn't help. Yeah, I lost 100 pounds on the Subway and pedophilia diet. And then it came out that they had the same chemicals from yoga mats in their bread, which not great advertising. I get my fill of yoga each day by eating a Subway sandwich. Are you looking to get fit and work out at the same time? No, wait, hold on. I misspoke. Are you looking to get fit and eat at the same time? It sounds difficult, but if you eat a Subway sandwich, you can have some yoga mat in the sandwich. This is the best publicity they've had years. Fight fascism with Subway sandwiches. By far the best. Okay, next story for Is It the Onion or Not? It just every day more Is It the Onion. Is it the onion or not that the National Guard is now cleaning up the garbage in Washington, D.C.? Like literally spending their day picking up trash and raking leaves and shit. National Guard troops deployed in D.C. are working in sanitation and landscaping duties. This says so much about our fucking garbage system. And our garbage system. Man, I have had so many good puns today that were all unintentional. I don't know if that means I'm a genius or I don't realize these puns. How much clearer could it be we live in a pathetic garbage system than here's what this tells you. One, the $1 trillion a year military is too fucking large if you don't know what to do with the idiots except send them around picking up trash and raking mulch. Two, this is probably the best thing they could be doing because our bloodthirsty, disgusting, belligerent, unhinged military should not be killing people around the world as we've been doing every goddamn day for the past year after year after year. What is it, 90 whatever % of U.S. history? We've been at war. We've been murdering people. So I'd rather have them raking leaves and picking up dog poop bags. I'm all for that. So this is what they should be doing. But on top of that, this shows how Trump's idiocy about, DC's a criminal nightmare. It's just crime everywhere, even though it's at a 30-year low. Violent crime in Washington, D.C. is at a 30-year low if you don't count what the National Guard and the fucking ICE are doing. It just proves that he's full of shit. If these National Guard have nothing to do but rake mulch and pick up sanitation bags. Also, it shows that they shouldn't have fired all the park people that they fired, right? Doge have been firing people from every government agency, even the ones that pick up the poop bags at the parks. So now they got idiots with guns picking up the poop bags. The final note on this is that I love that these morons and there is a little aspect of feeling bad for dummies who sign up for the National Guard because some of them signed up legit just because they were trying to pay for college or something, which also talks to how college is not affordable and people's lives are destroyed. Now, we don't actually have the American dream unless you want to sign up to go kill people. But so signing up for the military but it is mostly dum-dums, meaning like people that do not understand. I know. There's plenty of good people in the military, but they've been misled. But they're signing up for the world's most disgusting, bloodthirsty empire, and they don't realize it because they haven't done the research. And, at that age, 18 years old, I mean, I had no desire to sign up for the military, but I also didn't understand anything about really politics or the US empire. So I'm not claiming I would have been any different if I'd had any inclination towards the military. I mean, my father was in the military for 20 years, so I easily could have followed that path. So I get you're young and you're kind of dumb and uninformed on this stuff, but it is not a good choice to sign up to go kill innocent people. And anyway, it's kind of funny that you have these guys, mainly young people, signing up because they want to be all tough, want to be in the military, and then they find themselves picking up the old poop bags in Washington D.C. parks. Oh, this is you can see the Washington Monument in the background, so this must be the Washington Monument area, which I was in many times. Have to go for a run, and it was the only open space. So, but yes, every day news stories that you can't tell whether it's the Onion or not. This is the where our nation's headed. Okay, let's keep it moving. I got a few more stories for you. I do want to talk a little more about outside the United States, of course. It is outside the United States, but it's how the U.S. is fucking up other countries. So I have spoken on recent shows about Trump going after Venezuela, going after Maduro, putting a $50 million bounty on his head. Thank you, Zaffo, for supporting the show. I do not frown upon super chats. Whether you're watching the show live or not, super chat always helps. So thank you for that. Support the show. But, and you should also, actually, this is a good time to tell everybody, you should also support the show by becoming a member over at leecamp.net, my locals page. It costs $6 a month. Come on, man. It's like 38 cents an episode, and I work so goddamn hard. Please. But also you get to hang out with all the cool kids over at Locals. You can watch these live on Locals. Probably a bunch of people doing that right now. Hello to everybody at Locals. And you can have cool conversations with them and hang out with them and meet them. And it's just all that cool stuff. But also you get lots of perks for signing up. Anyway, they claim that Maduro and the Venezuelan government is, narco traffickers, and they have this gang that the U.S. government has decided to make up a new cartel, and they've been calling it the Cartel of the Suns, S-U-N-S. The Cartel of the Suns is the running all the narco trafficking into the U.S. through Latin. It's the Cartel of the Suns. There's only one problem. It's not a real thing. And here is President Petro of Colombia saying the Cartel of the Suns does not exist. It's a fictitious far-right excuse for regime change. Colombian President Petro said Monday that the so-called Cartel of the Suns does not exist, and denounced that this narrative used by imperialism to criminalize Venezuela and carry out a military intervention to control its resources is a fiction used by the far right to overthrow governments that do not obey Washington's whims. And I'm sure someone in Washington, the CIA brain trust, came up with this whole gambit to come up with this fake narco cartel. And the reason they call it the Cartel of the Suns is because Venezuelan generals have a sunshine, like on a picture of a sun on their lapels and stuff. And this is an effort to try and get the Venezuelan public and people outside Venezuela to think that the upper echelon of Venezuela, the president, the generals in the military are corrupt. And it's a way of trying to fracture the society, fracture the connection between the people in the military, to try and coup Venezuela, to try and collapse that country. There is zero concern for the people of Venezuela, absolutely at all. If this were successful, like the U.S.'s view, America's view, the American elite of a successful version of this would be that they succeed in a coup. The whole country is up in arms, just pure chaos, and everything collapses. Like in Syria, you have 94% of people underneath the poverty line, like in Syria, and you don't even know who's running things. It's like, gangs, splinters into gangs running things, and like in Libya, like in Syria, and that would be a success. The U.S. would go, we did it. And why would they say that? Because then they could go in and get what it is they really want, which is A, to make sure a socialist state isn't successful, but B, and actually I probably have these two backwards, the number one reason would be, and last I checked my alphabet, I think B was second, third, no, fourth, maybe. But the real first reason would be the fact that Venezuela has more oil than literally any country in the world. There's more oil underneath Venezuela and Venezuelan waters than any country in the world. And the United States wants that, A, wants that oil, but B, and I don't know why I'm using all these letters. There's too many letters, but wants to make sure that oil does not get pumped out by Venezuela, by the socialist government of Venezuela, making the Venezuela government very rich, which then could distribute those profits out to the people, which would make Venezuela and their people very rich. And so you would have a very rich socialist country. The people would be very happy and not struggling. And that oil would get pumped and largely sold outside of the petrodollar. It would be devastating to the US dollar, devastating to US power, and you'd have a shining city on the hill of a socialist example, where the resources of a country are given to the people rather than to a tiny corporate elite. And you'd have this massively rich, massively successful, massively thriving country, and meanwhile harming the petrodollar. It would be an utter catastrophe for the U.S. and U.S. propaganda, and that is why they have manufactured coup attempt after coup attempt after coup attempt, and this one is their latest. There is the Cartel of the Suns. It's the new WMD, the Cartel of the Suns. Petro pointed out that the flow of Colombian cocaine through Venezuela is controlled by what he calls the drug trafficking junta, whose bosses live in Europe and the Middle East. What? You mean it's not Maduro? He says, I propose to the U.S. and Venezuela that we destroy the cartel together. It is about coordination, not submission. But of course, the U.S. doesn't really care about the cartel. They don't really care about drugs. In fact, often they are facilitating drug. The CIA spent many years, moving drugs through Latin America from other places, dumping crack into the black community to harm the black community. Most of the time, the U.S. doesn't actually give a shit. It's just useful. The drug war is useful to achieve other aims for the U.S., ruling elite, for those sociopath, parasitic fucks who run things. Petro said a few days ago, Petro called for coordinated actions against organized crime between the governments of both nations in a climate characterized by cooperation and dialogue, not impositions, as the White House has attempted to do in its relations with Mexico. He says, the one who controls cocaine trafficking through Venezuela is not the Cartel of the Suns. That is a lie, like Iraq's weapons of mass destruction, and it only serves to invade countries. So, whenever you hear Cartel of the Suns, just remember you're hearing WMD in Iraq. Here's another article on this same topic. The Cartel of the Suns, leftovers that were never edible. And he means leftover. Thank you, Denise, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Denise says, thank you, Lee, for putting this information in the world. Crazy how many people still trust those in power. Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. How many people still believe so much of the garbage that is put out. But what he means by leftovers is the propaganda that has been put forward again and again in different ways through the years. And by the way, both these articles are from OrinocoTribune.com. Great outlet. The U.S. narratives, anytime you hear something about Venezuela and or something in Latin America and you think that's probably not true, you can probably find something at Orinoco Tribune that will clarify what is actually happening. Anyway, this article says the U.S. narratives about the cartel of the Suns and the alleged connection of President Maduro with drug trafficking are nothing more than a reheated dish that was never edible, not even when it was first cooked up. It is obvious that a new offensive is underway to destabilize the country politically after the constitutional cycle of elections concluded with the municipal contest this past July, which produced very favorable results for Chavismo at all levels, national, regional, and local. Chavismo is the movement that includes Maduro and Chavez before him. What is being applied today against Venezuela is nothing new. It is the same concoction the U.S. has been cooking since 1999, when Hugo Chavez came to power through an overwhelming avalanche of votes. The purpose has always been the same. In Venezuela, as elsewhere, with leftist or socially oriented governments, to criminalize popular movements and demonize their leaders. Chavez was linked to every group and movement already demonized: Colombian guerrillas, ETA, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas. At some point, you can, like, if you go back in the archives, you can find articles that tried to link Chavez to all of those things. Oh, Chavez is in bed with Hamas. He's in bed with Hezbollah. He's Al-Qaeda. In fact, recently, I think in like the past 3 years, they tried to claim Hezbollah was in Venezuela. It's so stupid. Chavez was linked to every group and movement already demonized. I already said that. His government was accused of supplying uranium for the Iranian atomic bomb and of every fabrication brewed by right-wing media and intelligence laboratories. And so they've tried this narco. Oh, Chavez is a narco trafficker. Oh, Maduro is a narco trafficker. They've tried this bullshit before, and they keep trying it. They're not done yet. And I hope I did a good enough job earlier of explaining why the U.S. and Trump really seem to have it out for Venezuela more than almost any other country, especially any other country in Latin America, but almost more than any other country. Maybe only Iran is above them on the list. And to some degree, China, but we also still have a lot of working relationships with China, and we do not with Venezuela. But all right, one more quick story, and then I might show a clip from Unredacted tonight. But just a quick note. I do these live streams Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern every week. You just got to show up. Just put it in your calendar because you will not get the alerts. But I am not going to be on this Friday. There will be an Unredacted tonight, tomorrow night, but no live stream Friday because of family stuff. But I think I will have a live stream on Labor Day, so I hope y'all see you on Monday. Anyway, no live stream Friday. Trump is putting Confederate statues back up, and here's why they must fall. It's from the Intercept. And I just wanted to note this. Trump has said he's putting a few of the Confederate statues back up, and they include the Ku Klux Klan member Albert Pike. They wrote in the Intercept, she wrote likely Ku Klux Klan member, but it wasn't likely. He was actually he likely helped with the ideas that founded the KKK. He was roommates with the dude who founded the KKK at some point. And but not only this, he was a war criminal. He was a known war criminal, Albert Pike. He was also a Freemason, but that's not really as relevant. But he was a Confederate general who mutilated or approved the mutilation of the bodies during war, Union bodies. And for that, he was, I think, charged with war crimes. But because the ruling elite are, pretty good to the ruling elite, by the end of his life, he was back in good graces with the government or whatever. So there was a Pike statue up in Washington, D.C., And I actually went there that night that they pulled it down to report on it. I didn't get there till after it was already pulled down, but uh, yeah, Trump wants to put these back up, these horrific statues to horrific people. And if you need to hear it from someone who is descended from Robert E. Lee, these statues should not fucking be up. We need to find new things to look up to in our society. For those of you who don't know, and for those of you who go, "Oh, it's history," we'll put them in a museum. Put them in a fucking museum. Okay, a lot of things are history. Lynching is history. We don't have statues of people being lynched. Plenty of things are history, and we do not need them in our society in the middle of roads. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, born in D.C., but later Richmond, Virginia. One of the main monument, main road in Richmond, Virginia is Monument Avenue. I would drive on it every single day. I had to go on Monument Avenue every day, and it was mainly Confederate soldiers. The biggest statue was of Robert E. Lee. It is and was the largest Confederate, largest Civil War statue in the nation. It was massive, and But here's something else you need to know, other than that just being horrific to begin with. It's like, why are we celebrating people that defended slavery, people that were technically traitors of this country that tried to rip it apart? Why is that something we're celebrating? Well, something else you need to know is most of these statues were put up years after the Civil War in order to call back to how the South wanted to go back to slavery. This was not like, it was not like 1865. They put up these statues because they just lost the war and they were like, well, we still want to remember. No, this is often 30 years, sometimes 40 years. I believe that Robert E. Lee statue was maybe 1890 or something. But here, if you want to know how disgusting that Robert E. Lee statue was, when they pulled it down was when they saw the time capsule underneath. They knew it was down there, but they weren't going to go get it. So they pull it down, and so they open the time capsule underneath the Robert E. Lee monument, and it's a box with a bunch of newspaper clippings and stuff. One of the things in there was a photograph of a dead Abraham Lincoln. And why do you think it was put in that time capsule? Why do you think they had a photo of a dead Abraham Lincoln? Because they were celebrating a dead Abraham Lincoln. That is why that picture was underneath the Robert E. Lee statue. But these guys were put up later to remind everyone how racist our society was, to say proudly, we still look up to racists and we wish we were back there. We wish we still owned human beings. That is why these statues were put up. Specifically, it was to say, this is what we value as a society. When you put up statues, it is, look at all the other statues that we're not pulling down. There's fine arguments for why these people shouldn't be up either. But we have statues of Abraham Lincoln and, George Washington and all this, monuments for them and all this stuff. These things are put up to say, this is what we look up to as a society. That is why these Confederate statues were put up, to say, this is what we look up to, is racism, is slavery. And so, Trump, being such a disgusting sociopath, wants to put them back up. It's just one more. I've had this joke for a while, so forgive me if you've already heard it. But if you think, our statues are meant to show us what to look up to, what we should want to be in society, and if you look at it that way, then in our history, our brief little history as the United States, there were more respected and I don't know, held aloft, heralded horses in our history than there were women or black folks, because we have way more statues of horses than we do of women. I would challenge anyone to list 3 statues of women in the United States. Like, I know in Washington, D.C., there's one small one of Joan of Arc, but statues of women almost don't exist. Almost the same for statues of non-white people. So basically, with these statues, we are saying mainly you should look up to white men. And anybody who, it's amazing how many people can be like kind of liberal, kind of progressive, and not and still make the dumb argument, especially if you live in like Richmond or Virginia or something, still make the dumb argument like, well, it's our history, so we should just respect our history. Yeah, our history was a lot of shit. It's a lot of awful shit. Some of it was good. Let's put up statues of good stuff. There was a lot of people fighting against slavery in Richmond, Virginia. There aren't statues of them. Like, there's a lot of people who led slave rebellions throughout the South. Don't have statues of them. History's a lot of things. Anyway. There is one statue remaining on Monument Avenue. Arthur Ashe, the tennis player from Richmond, Virginia. First black male to win a Grand Slam, I believe. And I always respected him, so I'm glad his statue's up. Yeah, a lot of good things we actually could have statues to instead of awful shit. Okay. I'm going to play 3 minutes real quick of the last Unredacted tonight. For those of you who've already seen it, forgive me. But for those of you who not, here's a couple of minutes of me trashing Sam Harris, who loves genocide, loves Israel's genocide. And I'm going to show you just a few minutes. Hopefully you'll go watch the full episode, but also new episode tomorrow night. So I hope you'll catch that as well, 7 p.m. Eastern. Here is Sam Harris. And in this clip, since I just dived right into it, I'm showing a clip of him talking about the differences between Hamas and Israel, and even just the way he couches it. One of those is an entire nation. The other is a political entity, because he can't actually say between Gazans in Israel, because then people start going, really? Babies in Gaza are the things you're listing? So he has to create a false dynamic just from the word jump. But anyway, here he is. Yeah, I bet it is. Let's play the greatest hit, shall we? Sam spends a while detailing for his listeners how different Hamas and Israel are.
I want to actually just draw a few bright lines where people can see them to show the moral high ground here. So there's just some striking differences between the two sides that you elucidate in your book. I mean, one is that one side takes hostages, even young children and old women.
God, that's so true. One side takes way more hostages than the other side. Hamas has taken roughly 250 hostages in the history of Hamas. Israel has taken tens of thousands of Palestinian hostages. There's at least 10,000 Palestinian hostages in Israel's prisons right now. In fact, for every Palestinian Israel freed during the last ceasefire deal, it apprehended 15 more the minute it freed that one. But those aren't hostages kidnapped as a response to a ceasefire deal. No, they're dinner guests for the prisons. Dinner guests who can't leave. Israel had thousands of these hostages even before October 7th happened. Sam's toddler brain might respond, but those are criminals who were prosecuted. It's different. I like yogurt. No. Most of them were never even charged with anything. Those who were usually brought before an Israeli judge for roughly 60 seconds and declared guilty of whatever the IDF said, which is odd because we know the IDF never lies, and you would assume that an Israeli judge who was born and raised Israeli in an Israeli court with an Israeli justice system would totally side with all the Palestinians. What could be going on here? I do not understand. And in case you're wondering, many of these hostages are indeed women and children. But Sam's not done with his genius, only Hamas takes hostages worldview. He then says,
so, the non-combatants receive these hostages not with looks of horror, but with open celebration, right? This
Yes.
like it is completely intelligible. This from a cultural standpoint within Gaza
Mm.
that this is exactly what you do. This is the good is on your side.
First of all, Sam Harris takes a couple of videos of Gazans celebrating the capture of hostages and says, well, clearly that's the entirety of Gazans. They are one thing, which is not true and racist. But what's a little racism when you're already down with genocide? You hear me, brother? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And on top of that, Israelis have celebrated far worse than that. Literally, tour groups of Israelis go up on hillsides to watch and celebrate the genocide in Gaza. How wildly is that? And Sam might respond, well, they're reacting to how horrible October 7th was for them. You need to understand their trauma. They've been triggered. Here they are doing it 11 years ago. The sadism of Israelis is not new, my friend. Okay, I'll wrap there, but you can go watch the full episode of Unredacted tonight at leecamp.com/unredacted. That's leecamp.com/unredacted. That's the full playlist, so you can see every episode. But also tomorrow night, new episode. And if you feel like you got 38 cents out of this hour that I just gave you, 38 goddamn cents, please go join up at leecamp.net, my locals page. You'll help support this show and so much more. But also you can join up at patreon.com/leecamp if you prefer that. And I will see you for the next live stream. I'll see you Monday because no live stream Friday. But I'll see you tomorrow for Unredacted Night. Keep fighting.